Hey everyone, Richard Metalfan here, for you guys a brand new 2017 album review. And today we're going to be looking into a band that, well, I'm pretty sure I'm going to lose a lot of subscribers over this. And yeah, and this is a band that, well, a lot of people either like and a lot of people fucking hate. And honestly, I dig some of these guys' stuff. I'm not like the hugest fan, but I dig some of these guys' stuff. And as clearly see below the title, today we're going to be looking into the new album from the band We Came as Romans, entitled Cold Like War, which came out through Sharp Tone Records. Now, everybody should probably know, or at least heard of We Came as Romans. They're a post-hardcore metalcore band hailing from Michigan. They've been around since 2005. And these guys had like some lineup changes and some whatnot. And then their first album that came out in 2009, which was called To Plant a Seed, and which I honestly thought was a pretty solid debut. It sort of like combined sort of like metalcore, but also had use of the keyboards to incorporate some sort of like elements of symphonic metal into their sound, which kind of makes it unique for some of the, I guess, kind of like the Warped Tour scene-esque bands around that time from '09, like them and Asking Alexandria and A Day to Remember, Devil Wears Prada, bands from that era. And then in 2000, and then they put out their second album in 2011, Understanding What We've Grown to Be, or I think that's what it was called. I thought it was a sort of a step up. Kind of like has a little less of those elements that are a lot present in the album. And then 2013 they put out Tracing Back Roots, which I thought was a pretty good album too. It's sort of like combines the elements of those first two albums and sort of mixes it in together. But in 2015, they released their self-titled fourth album, which, and I honestly didn't really care for that album a whole lot. I mean, there was like a few good songs here and there, but overall, the album just didn't do anything for me. Man, I feel like they went like with a sort of like more of an alternative rock kind of feel, which I think the band themselves said they wanted to experiment, but I honestly didn't care for it. But then they released one song called Wasted Age, which I'll talk about, and I was like, it sounds pretty good. But then I'll get into more into detail about that as well as the rest of the album a little bit. But to answer this question, does this album make up for the self-titled album? In my honest opinion, I think it has. I think the kind of it's for this album. I feel like it has sort of like the elements of like tracing like To Plant a Seed and stuff, but you could tell that it kind of like has a more mature kind of like newer kind of like heavier kind of edge to it, which was pretty good. I have to say so. So and the production I feel like is all right. I mean, like you could definitely tell it's okay. I mean, and let's talk about the vocal work from Dave Stevens and Kyle Pavone. I mean, Dave Stevens, what can I say? His harsh vocals have changed a lot. Like from like the earlier stuff, it's more low and guttural, but you could tell more. It's kind of like has more hardcore kind of like yells from like kind of like hardcore type bands and sort of like his clean vocals. I mean, he did clean vocals since Tracing Back Roots onward. I tell like he has some really good clean voice as well. And Kyle Pavone's clean vocals are pretty good as well. I mean, starting out he wasn't really that good. You could tell he had used some auto tune on the first album or so, but he's honestly gotten so much better. This from like live videos I saw on YouTube. He definitely tell he's like gotten better at his voice, and I really like it. Um, the guitar work from Josh Moore and Luke Cotton are simply simplified heavy riffs. We could tell it's some sort of like melodic kind of like elements to it. Their riffing. It's all right. The bass playing from Andy Glass. I kind of wish the bass you can hear it a little bit more on this album. I mean, I can hardly hear it. That's just one little gripe. And the drumming. And this should mention this is the first album with a new drummer since original longtime drummer Eric Choi left the band last year, and they got David Puckett, who played drums for, well, since they broke up last year, the former drummer for Today, and he did some pretty good drumming on this album, sort of filling in the shoes that Eric had. You could definitely tell like it was like he just adds his own sort of like flavor to it, and I think he's a pretty good drummer. But yeah, without further ado, let's dive into this album track by track. Now the album opens up with Vultures with Clipped Wings. Kind of has like a slow electronic start behind sort of like the full brutality hits. And sort of like has some amazing sort of like vocals from like Dave and Kyle. And you could definitely tell like especially with like the harsh vocals from from Dave and the clean singing from Kyle, like the two kind of like mesh together, and I think it's a pretty good song. And then we go into the title track, Cold Like War, which kind of focuses on melodic chord. This is kind of like too much with sort of like the whoa ohs part, which kind of like if you meant to be like sort of like singing along at a live kind of show. I feel like it kind of like goes good live, and I actually kind of dig this song. You could definitely tell it's like I said before, it has like the elements of like To Plant a Seed and stuff, but you could tell it has sort of like a modern kind of like twist to it and sort of like a more of an edge to it. Two Hands, kind of more melodic than what we would normally expect from We Came as Romans. It feels like it has sort of like a radio friendly kind of build up to a catchy chorus. It almost kind of reminds you a little bit of like Blink 182 to a song in this respect. The guitars are dialed way back during the main verse and has a chord progression rather than a riff, than the trademark of like radio rock or whatever. Lost in the Moment, which kind of has a balance of both like the heavy and sort of like a radio friendly approach to it, kind of like a mixture of the both. But I feel like the chorus kind of like repeats the song title over and over again, but sells into a shameless breakdown kind of like late in the song. And it's a okay song. Foreign Fire kind of like picks up sort of like the heaviness, this bit more riffy, and the harsh vocals in the main verse and a brief breakdown. It's pretty solid. And then we go into Wasted Age, in my opinion, the heaviest song on Cold Like War. It's also this song has just been around for a little over a year or so. It's kind of like shows like the little teaser for what we'd expect for this album. But it's more unrelenting in its heaviness with a hardcore kind of like style riff. It's generally more memorable breakdown. It's a good song. Encoder. They're sort of like Vultures. I feel like the song is kind of overproduced electronic sound. So it has sort of like disco, kind of like dubstep, hip hop, sort of like with some samples. I mean, sure, there's sort of like some organic heaviness in like the chorus of the song, but the main verse is like scream rapped, which if there's nothing to see, it tries to like sort of like make up for the previous song with sort of heaviness and a lack of electronica. I think it's a pretty good step up. And then we go into Promise Me, which is kind of like a power ballad with an up-tempo programmed beat. It gains for forgivability for not trying to be too heavy. And then the album closes with Learning to Live, which is very underwhelming. I mean, again, I feel like it kind of like makes some mistakes from encoder and stuff. But overall, Cold Like War by We Came as Romans, it's a pretty good album. It's a good album. I mean, it's not like mind-blowing like compared to like their older stuff, but it's pretty solid. If I were to give this a score, I'd probably give this a 7 to a 7.5 out of 10. And I mean, I bought it, and I maybe it'll grow on me more if I listen to it more, but I decided to go with it with an open mind. But yeah, I know I'm gonna lose like 500 subs, so by buying to any elitists, they're gonna talk shit. But yeah, that's my review of Cold Like War by We Came as Romans, guys. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about it, and I'll see you all in the next video, and keep it metal.